One, I am here with my partners at MACollective today to introduce our second tranche of the MACollective Debt Fund I. We thought it would be really helpful to give everyone an update on how the fund is doing and also answer some questions that we've been had and that we've been receiving and talk a little bit about the benefits of the fund. So I am going to turn this over to Kelly Garrett. Kelly is the managing partner of Rehab Wallet and a key partner for us in this initiative. Kelly?
Hey guys, thanks for having us. A little bit about myself real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to the managing director at Rehab Wallet, Angela Dunn, to be able to give some stats and so forth. But again, my name is Kelly Garrett, and I'm one of the partners, one of the three partners at Rehab Wallet. We've been in business now almost a little over 3.5 years. A little bit about me. I've got a few decades now in the lending business, in the lending world. Had a mortgage brokerage from 2000, about 2010, and did a lot of private lending in between that time and Rehab Wallet. But Rehab Wallet was kind of formed because through the lens of a flipper, because during that time, about 18 years of that time, I flipped properties myself. And so we're entrenched in this investor world of people that need fix and flip loans. And so we've been able to put a lot of money on the street, raise a lot of money, and put a lot of money on the street with very good, experienced borrowers. And I, between my relationship and a few others' relationships that's inside of our team, we've just been able to really get, again, I'm going to use this word, entrenched in this world of fix and flippers, because if you do a good job, those fix and flippers want to be on the property working, sometimes even, with a tool belt on. They don't want to be in the office dealing with the day-to-day. So if you can help take care of them, and again, we use that, we're the flippers lender, to be able to take care of them and take some of that paperwork off them, they'll just keep coming back to you. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to turn over to Angela Dunn and let her kind of give some stats now of where the fund is presently and kind of where we're headed.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to speak in here. And I apologize, I'm not on camera, but I've got some great info to share with you, and I hope you're as excited about it as I am. But first, just a tiny bit about myself. I joined Kelly almost 6 years ago and have been learning about not only lending, but my background is primarily in leading organizations and teams through change, specifically significant amounts of growth. And that's what Rehab Wallet has been experiencing since June of 2020. So speaking to some of that growth, I'll share with you where we are since inception and share a few stats there. And then I'll share a few more of our recent stats and accomplishments. So since inception, we have funded $270 million in loans. That is 1,346 individual properties or loans. We're super proud that we have a 85% return borrower rate. And one of the driving factors behind that is we only lend to experienced flippers. And once they experience our service levels, they return back to us. So we're very proud of that. It's actually 24 months running of that. Our average loan amount's about $200,000. And again, 1,346 loans as of the close of business on yesterday, as we finished up the month of January. Our current portfolio is about $82 million of loans that we are servicing, and that is a total of 366 loans. In 2023, we funded $104 million in loans. Our goal for 2024 is $125 million. We have averaged over the past 12 months about 47 loans per month, which accounts for about $8.5 million or so per month in loans. And we forecasted for 2024. And I know a little bit later in our call in conversation with you, we're going to speak to the demand in the future for this, but that will align with our goals for 2024, which is to fund $125 million. So not super aggressive when you take into account the demand that we have, because we could surely fund more than that. However, we're being very intentional with the borrowers that we will fund to. Again, we choose only those that have a very strong performance history and are very experienced in flipping. So I think I spoke to our primary stats since inception, and then our current stats. And the one additional one, because I know one of the questions that we've received from some investors is a concern about defaults. And again, while history may not necessarily speak to the future, we've had one default over 1,300 loans since inception. And I think that is a testimony to the business model that Kelly's experience created a foundation for us. And that's what I've got for now, unless there's any immediate questions, or Kelly, if there's something else you want me to add there.
Nope, that's good. Appreciate it. What other questions do you guys have that y'all might want us to discuss?
Sure, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit because I had some questions from investors. They're used to seeing a lot of what I consider traditional syndications and looking at those returns. So let's talk a little bit about how and why the debt fund is different from a traditional longer term syndication. And also, I wanted to talk a little bit within that, not only why the debt fund may be a great addition to an investor's portfolio, but also the power of compounding, which is available to investors.
Well, like you said, it is different. It's I speak on with money in general and my own personal money. I'm in syndications, and a lot of you guys are. In addition to the syndication, I also am in our own debt fund. So I want to have on a pie chart, I want to have a percentage of my money in syndications where maybe you can bear a little bit higher of returns, but your money's going to be tied up for 5 to 7 years. Then I want a percentage of my money also not tied up to be able to, and we can't expect a higher return when it's not tied up that long. At the same time, it's less risky. So with more risk comes a higher return. With less risk comes a little bit of a lower return. I think that's just, common sense that we all should have a little bit of both going on at the very same time. The fund is short term. You can get your money out coming in and coming out at any given time because life does happen. Whether you're having a child get married or anything that comes up where you need your money to actually pay for that, but the child's not getting married from 10 months from now or 12 months from now. So we want it to be sitting in something bearing a higher interest rate than it is sitting in our savings account. And that's what these funds are for. The flexibility of the fund like this is so different than it is in a syndication. I mean, there's very little flexibility in a syndication. And again, I'm not talking bad about it because I love syndications. It's a piece of our pie or a percentage of our investment strategy that we all have in our portfolios. So this short-term flexibility piece, you have inside this fund, we have a 90-day liquidity option. If you need your money out, as simple as an email comes in, and we have up to 90 days to get your money out. Now, does it take us 90 days? Absolutely not. It's usually 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. Sometimes it's 3 weeks. You got to remember, every day we're closing loans, we're paying off loans, and money's coming in. So every day there's this balancing act of things going on, but we also throw in the return of capital, meaning coming back to our investors. So every day that's a balance, and we're not going to hurt the fund trying to get, speed up return of capital. But at the same time, it's a 90-day liquidity option, which makes me very happy and feels very conservative and safe. The compounding feature of this, let's say that you really don't care about, you don't need this for your everyday lifestyle or needs. So you want to leave it in the fund and let it compound. Let's give an example. So $100,000, let's say you have $100,000, your return at 8% would be $667. Well, let's say you didn't need the 667. You would rather it compound and bear a little bit higher of an interest rate. Leave the 667 in. Next month, March, you're compounding at 100,667 at 8%. So every month, that compounding feature kind of gains you a few extra percentage points during that year or during the time that you leave it in. So the compounding feature is a big thing for me personally. That's my choice of things. I don't need the money coming in on a monthly basis. So I leave it in, let it compound. Lastly, I use the word monthly just then. I don't know about you guys, but I also love that feature. If you do need that return coming in on a monthly basis, we have that feature. A lot of people like to do quarterly returns and so forth, but we do monthly returns. Even though it's a very intensive admin duty, we send checks out on a monthly basis. So, I want to call it safe. I want to call it a very, very similar to a CD, except it's paying higher returns than your CDs at your local banks. The flexibility of being able to come in and out when life happens, that's very important. But let me just explain that it is a complete separate set of money of your family's portfolio here in this piece of a pie versus the syndication model. It's just two different sets of money within your portfolio.
And can you talk just a little bit more about the, you mentioned that there was less risk and then it was more conservative. Can you just shed a little bit more light on that and
yeah,
kind of checks and balances that you put in there to make sure that that is the case for investors?
Well, we're lending to fix and flippers, mostly to single family residences. And so 50% of our loans would have to be in default for this fund to have a problem. And we've had, I don't want to have to go through this percent, but we've had one default in 1,346 loans. So that's 0.0008%. That's huge. I mean, we're so proud of that. We're so proud of that. And the way we actually are capable of doing this is this reason. One is that our after repair value, the amount of money that we lend on a single family house is 70% of the after repair value. So the market would have to change 30%. Now, I've been through 2008, 9, and 10. I know what a financial crash looks like. I am super conservative of that. I tell everybody I think I still have PTSD over that because I was young and dumb and didn't know that market cycles happen, I don't think, at that time. But I've been through one, and I know what to expect, and I know what to keep my eyes open for. So we would never go above 70%. It's never going above 70% after repair value. And then last but not least, we have our most experienced employee of 22 years that has worked beside me all those 22 years in the underwriting seat. She's our gatekeeper. Before a loan goes through, Anna Teixeira is going to be able to say yes or no to that loan. I wanted somebody very experienced. I held out to get her and make sure that she was the one for that seat. And it'll always be that way. So that to me keeps this fund very conservative. Last but not least, the market is very different than 2008, 9, and 10. I know that everybody watches the news and fear factor comes on with some things. However, I need you to understand, and I've witnessed it. It is very different. Our values in our homes are not coming down. The inventory in any area, I promise you, probably nationally, that everybody's sitting in at home listening to this, the inventory is very low. It's very opposite of what happened in 2008, 9, and 10. The inventories were completely opposite back then. Lots of houses to choose from. These days, we don't have that problem. So it keeps that fear of worrying about this single family residences and the market coming down being a problem. It's not a problem, but if it were, we still have that 30%, 70% of one still gives us 30% of movement there to have a problem with defaults. But we're proud of that. I'm talking a lot about it, but I'm very proud of that number because we've been able to keep that number low. But if we did, and let me go back. Last thing. If we were to have defaults and have a problem, I told you I flipped for 18 years. This is what I would do. I would set up another department, and it would be just like it did back in 2008, 9, and 10. It would be bank owned. We would take those properties. I would create a team, and we would fix and flip them ourselves and sell them. Remember, we got 30% of a delta there to deal with, and I wouldn't be concerned with it. It's not a fear of mine. It's not a scare of mine because I did it for so long.
Thank you so much for explaining that a little bit further.
Of course.
Margaret, did you have some things?
Yeah, Kelly, I've got a question. A couple of things. First of all, I wanted to see if you can clarify how the borrowers are actually buying the houses, because obviously everybody who's looked at the paper sees how inflated housing prices are, which is great when they're selling, but how are they managing to keep costs down when they actually acquire the property?
A lot of our borrowers, if not most of them, are going direct to seller. They're not on the MLS. Is the MLS still, has it started to become a tool in their toolbox? Yeah, a little bit. But it's not the biggest tool in there. The biggest tool right now is anybody that's on this call has probably seen bandit signs that says, I'll buy your house for cash, or you've gotten a flyer in the mail or a postcard in the mail that they'll come by your house, right? So a lot of those guys scrape lists, guys and gals, they scrape lists from probate, from high equity, and then they mail mailers to direct a seller, right? And so you wonder, like, why would a seller do that? Why don't they just put it on the market? Well, a lot of sellers don't have the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to maybe paint, maybe, redo some floors. They just don't have it. Or maybe they just don't understand real estate. Or maybe they've had a death in the family and this is the last thing they want to deal with in their life.
Maybe they're not
They just
local,
want to move on.
right?
What's
Yeah.
that?
Or maybe they're not local in the case of like someone passed away and they don't live in the area.
Absolutely. That's a great point. We just had a situation, a deal that just came through, and they bought it from, it was the sister of the other sister had passed here in Charleston, South Carolina, but the sister was in Boston, right? And she was making, what is she going to do with this house in Charleston? She doesn't want that house in Charleston. And our borrower gave her a fair offer, and then they'll take it and rehab it and also take the risk and then flip it for a potential profit. Who knows who'll make a profit, but it's a potential profit. So that's literally what most of these borrowers are going, that's how they find their deals on a daily basis.
And I have another question too, Kelly. Can you speak about the demand for the loan? So if someone invests, how soon is it before you deploy their capital?
Angie, I'll let them quit listening to me and you answer that one. How about it?
All right. In most cases, we communicate to the investors that we want 4 to 6 weeks, but it rarely takes more than 2 to 4 weeks to place that capital. There's certainly times where it's taken even less than 2 weeks to place it, but they could expect no more than 4 to 6 weeks.
Angela, as of today, what is our oldest amount of money that's in the fund sitting waiting to get placed?
Right now, it's less than 5 business days. And I don't think there's been a time since inception that it's ever averaged more than 30 days. I think that average stayed right around 27 days or less, but we're less than 5 business days right now.
Awesome.
All right, great. So I just have one last question. You mentioned default rate is super low, which is one out of very many. What's the process look like if you do face another default?
Well, first and foremost, every state is different. And so we have to go through a foreclosure process of that state. Actually, it's listing it in weirdly in still the newspaper 4 weeks to be able to put it out there to make sure, I guess, heirs, et cetera, is not coming back and creditors aren't coming back on that debt. Then it gets placed on the docket of that county's foreclosure auction. And they have it once a month. And if, that sometimes is another 30 days that you have to wait for the first Thursday of the month to come around. Sometimes, so now we're in it for 2 more months waiting for it to be sold. There's a judge there that puts the deal out and says, okay, who's interested in 123 Main Street? And our attorney is representing us there as the bank. And they starts the bidding at our payoff amount. Okay. So then the bidders are sitting out and they bid on the property in $1,000 increments. So if our payoff is 100,000, somebody else might bid 101. Fine. If it keeps going up, that's fine. That's the payoff amount that we would receive. But all we're after is that payoff amount. And once again, it should work out that we're going to be in line, because if let's say that a borrower is 2 months late on their payment, and that's when we start the default letters, and that's when we start our default process. Because remember, if they're late 2 months, then I got to wait 2 more months, the 4 weeks for it to go in the newspaper, and then maybe another month for it to get on that rotation. Now we're in 4 months before I actually could get my hands on that property back. So we want to keep the default letters and keep things going out on time. Sometimes a default letter will get them in gear. I'm not here to to lend to own. That's not our process here. Our process is literally put a default letter out and say, hey, listen, I know you're in trouble. We've already tried to email you 14 times and you're not answering our email, but this default letter sometimes wakes them up, right? Then when they call us, what we've done on multiple, I would say 10 different occasions, is that we connect that borrower that's having problems making their payments, or life has happened, with another borrower inside Rehab Wallet's just world. And then we'll lend to this borrower. We'll give him money to go buy this borrower out and move on. Because once again, we talked about defaults and talked about one, and all that sounds great that we've got one default and all this time. But they're human beings. People are human beings. Life is going to happen. And we want to make sure that we can help that lender. We are Flipper's lender. I want to help you get out of your situation. And I'm going to connect you with this other borrower that is experienced, capable, has got a data points with us that they can fulfill payments, et cetera, and finish out a project. And we want to connect those people. And we've done that on multiple times. And that just goes back to us being involved in our markets. Mm-hmm. We're very involved. And when I say that, like tonight, we're all of us at 6 to 8, and there's going to be probably 4 or 5 of us at a local real estate investment group with all of our real estate gear on, and all of our Rehab Wallet gear on, and our booths and all that kind of stuff. And there'll be over 100 real estate investors there every single month. And we do that in multiple areas that we have a footprint in. And that's just knowing our borrowers, right? And I'm kind of old school when it comes to that. I want to have that face to face. I'm not a, Rocket Mortgage where everything is over online. I don't think you create relationships that way. I feel like we have been able to create relationships, and Ange told you 85% of our borrowers are returned. That's what we love. That's what we love. We know them by name. We know their kids' names, a lot of them. We know they pay their payments. And that's what we're after, right? We're helping them and they're helping us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you, Kelly and Angela.
All right, just before we close, I just wanted to clarify one thing I think is really important since we just talked about default. I want to clarify that when investors' capital comes in, it is not going to just one loan or one property, correct? So if I'm investing $100,000 into the fund, those funds are diversified across your entire loan portfolio, correct? So it's not just house A or house B, it's the whole.
Angie.
So it's risk mitigation yet again, right?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. Yes and yes. A lot of people, a lot of colleagues in our industry do it the other way. You got 123 Main Street comes available, and you call borrower A and say, hey, Joe, you want to invest in 123 Main Street? They would go look at it or whatever, right? But to me, when I opened Rehab Wallet, I didn't want to do it that way. And the reason is because 123 Main Street is with one person, one flipper, and something's going to happen to this guy. I don't know if I sound so morbid when I talk about this kind of stuff, because I don't know if it's my age or what, but stuff happens. And so I did not want my personal money and our investors' personal money invested with one person. What we do, your $100,000 comes in and it's collateralized over all those. Ange, how many loans do we have out right now? 300, high 200s on the street right now?
We have 366 loans in our portfolio for $82 million and some change.
So the $100,000 is collateralized over 300 plus loans. If the odds of something happening for 366 people at any given time at the same time, it's not going to happen, probably, right? And the last thing you got to remember is they're 6-month loans. So now our odds go down even further. Something's got to happen to that person in 6 to 9 months. It's not typically going to happen in the 6 months. So our average loan out right now is like 181 days, if I remember right, Ange.
And it actually just reduced significantly, 138 days now.
138 days. It was 180 days 2 months ago, but we're reducing it because we're getting some of these older loans off our books. And now we're back down to the 130 something days. That's every 4 months, let's do some math, a little over 4 months. Yeah. That they're in and out, in and out, in and out. So the odds are things are going to happen are pretty slim, but yeah, this collateralized over all these loans in our portfolio.
Thank you for clarifying. I used to do some private lending, which I no longer do for reasons as you mentioned. So I thought that was important to point out.
Yes.
So and sorry I interrupted, Christine. I will turn it back over to you.
That's okay. I was just going to wrap up and say thank you so much, Kelly and Angela from Rehab Wallet, for joining us and answering all of our questions with so much detail. And thank you for listening to this update. And if you have any specific questions about the MACollective Debt Fund, please feel free to reach out to either Angie, Margaret, or myself.